Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to this latest episode of the RCB Sports Show, where our special documentary this month is featuring on the icons of sports entertainment industry, where we look back on the classic members or characters or iconic sort of wrestlers who have left their mark in the wrestling industry in the last 30 years. And for this particular era, we're going back to the early 2000s, late 2000s, and there was a particular tag team that everybody was affectionate about, and who really got the world over. They had a really funky initiative sort of team song. They sort of real sort of gel. They were a reincarnation of the Dudley Boys. In terms of their likability, the one and only Cryme Thyme. And I'm delighted to be joined by one of the characters of that, the wrestler known as Jayson Paul, JTG, a very prominent independent wrestler in his own right as well, with numerous accomplishments. Jayson, if I can start off, I saw something there today. I was reading it online where they talk about you being in New York as a 14-year-old, going to a wrestling event and seeing Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, in action and being totally blown away or bowled over, and from that moment saying that this is something that you wanted to do. Is that a true sort of story, or is that far off the mark?
Oh no, it kind of hit the nail on the head. Well, before that, I always wanted to be a professional wrestler, but seeing The Rock at MSG and him going just doing total improv when the show was done, and just having an electrifying monologue. Well, he cut a promo and was just having fun. That kind of like sealed the deal. Like, yeah, that put the nail in the coffin. I'm going to be a WWE superstar one day. I'm going to dedicate my life to make sure I get in that ring one day to live my dream.
And I suppose, Jayson, growing up in the United States, I suppose you were a talented athlete. Were you versed in other forms of sport, in terms of track and field, in terms of American football, in terms of basketball? Were there other potential avenues that you could have pursued maybe as a young teenager? And how did you make your mind up that wrestling was where you wanted to go?
So that's a very very good question, because I had no athletic background prior to wrestling. When I was in high school, I took theater, I took acting, and I did a lot of auditions. You know, I got some roles as extra, and I did some small commercials. But as far as sports, I didn't even like watching sports. I wasn't into basketball, football, baseball. I just was in love with wrestling, and then when I decided to become a professional wrestler, that's when I decided to like start hitting the gym and working on my athletic ability.
And so, Jayson, you mentioned that. So, was it really the drama and entertainment, the storylines that really hooked you in terms of these characters? Was it the acting of the wrestlers that you saw as a young teenager? Was that really the gravitas for you in terms of more than the actual moves itself?
Yes, it was the storytelling and the characters that really captivated me when I was young. That's why I didn't like to watch any other sports, because they didn't have that drama, that the characters that that lured me in, that pulled me in. Wrestling was the only outlet that I that I had to get that.
So I suppose, Jayson, in terms of achieving that sort of dream, obviously you signed up for. Tell me, how did it come about this in terms of you're saying to yourself, I want to be a wrestler. You're probably 18, 19 at that time. How did it come about that you, from a kid from New York City, got the opportunity to wind up in Ohio Valley Wrestling in terms of that? Was it, you probably didn't have an agent or anything at the time, I presume. So was it just, how did you sort of chase down and open that door?
So I didn't start off at OVW. I started off in North Carolina.
Okay.
And I paid for training for about a year, but I only went there for 6 months because I didn't think I was getting the proper wrestling knowledge that I needed. So I was, I really wanted to learn. So I dropped my first professional wrestling trainer, and then before I did that, I got knowledge of OVW, and I did my homework, and I kept hearing about OVW. It was word of mouth, and I kept hearing it over and over again. And it was in Louisville, Kentucky, and I did not want to did not want to move to Louisville, Kentucky because I didn't have any family there, and it was a big culture shock for me. You know, I grew up in a big city, New York City, and then Louisville, Kentucky, you know, small town, and I was just really trying to avoid it. But I made the move. I made the move to Louisville, Kentucky, and then after being there for almost 3 years, I moved there when I was 19, 2021. Yeah, so 2 years. I got signed. I was very lucky. Right place, right time. And Vince McMahon saw me, and he loved the chemistry between me and Shad, and he loved the on-screen appearance of us, and he wanted us on his brand.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ohio OVW and Ohio Valley Wrestling, and you started off with the character the Neighborhoodie. The Neighborhoodie was the sort of character as such. When did was it very much on the cards when you and Shad were there at the same time? That what was the thinking about putting these guys together? Was it something that you came up with? Did you strike a friendship there, OVW, in terms of that, or was it a creative director at the time said, look, this has got the real promise, he's a young athletic, and Shad is a big sort of hard sort of brawler type, they go well as a team? Or how did that come about? Or was it just a friendship that you had while at OVW said, yeah, how about we join together?
So Shad and I were always friends. Before we were a tag team, he was like my big brother, and I was down in OVW. I was kind of in the wings, just waiting for my opportunity. And Shad had just finished running a program with CM Punk for the OVW title. When that program was up, you know, I think the writing team, I believe it was Al Snow, Paul Heyman, and Danny Davis, the owner of OVW, they was like, what are we gonna do with Shad now? You know, he just finished running a program. We got to keep his momentum up. And they decided to put him in a tag team. And from there, you know, we always had a great relationship, but we never thought about becoming a official tag team. And they put us together, and we were great together.
Yeah, that's true. And Jayson, in terms of, it's amazing the amount of people I speak to, and Paul Heyman somehow has his nose or his involvement in terms of their creation, or he has some bit of influence in terms of that again. And I suppose it's irony to see that Paul had a role to play in terms of Cryme Thyme as well.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he's the one who came up with the name Neighborhoodie.
And I suppose, Jayson, in terms of moving on then and moving to next and that sort of appearance before you Ohio Valley Wrestling and then moving into the WWE as Cryme Thyme. In terms of that, what was the sort of plan in terms of the Cryme Thyme? Was it to create that sort of New York sort of thuggish, sort of rap music type element or was it very much in terms of try and bring out a sort of street sort of funk sort of punk type sort of rock? Or what was the idea behind the sort of the characters behind the whole idea of Cryme Thyme?
So prior to us coming to WWE, Shad and I were doing Shad was just taking stuff from elements of our childhood that we grew up watching. For example, in Living Color, we took a lot of their sketches and made it our own. Like the Homeboy Shopping Network, you know, we turned that into the Cryme Thyme Shopping Network. Shad and I both love hip hop, and I took a lot of elements from hip hop and I incorporated it into my character. For example, the bulletproof vest that came from 50 Cent, the one pant leg up. That was from LL Cool J. The Timberlands, that was just a Brooklyn tradition. Like you just had to have a pair of Timbs, and as soon as you see Timbs, you automatically associate that with Brooklyn. That's kind of like our uniform, our foot uniform. The glasses, I got that from Soulja Boy with all the yo-yo-yos, and Shad rocked the Knicks, the Knicks jersey. With the Cryme Thyme logo, but he loved the Knicks. He grew up watching the Knicks, so we just took a lot of elements from our childhood, and made it our own and incorporated it into our gimmick.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of Cryme Thyme, there's so many illustrious teams throughout the ages who've held tag team belts and tag team goals. You look at from the Undertaker and Kane to the Steiner brothers, to the Hart brothers, to the Dudley boys, Matt and Jeff Hardy. To add your name to that sort of list, how sort of it's always there, and I suppose going down records and throughout history, Cryme Thyme will to see WWF champions, WWE champions on two different brands as well. So, how monumental is that for you when you look now and in terms of your career and say that when you see people from previous generations who have held the belts as well to be in the same category as those wrestlers?
Oh, you mean us having the tag team titles?
Yeah.
Oh, so Cryme Thyme never got the tag team titles.
Okay.
I know there was many opportunities. There were many circumstances where we were supposed to win the tag team titles, but the plans has changed last minute. Two that I know of. Yeah, so we never won the titles, but what we were told is we were over. We didn't need the titles. That's what one of the writers told us. And I was like, to me at the time didn't make any sense. It's like, you guys are the people's tag team champions. You don't need the belts is to either get somebody over or for the belt to get or somebody to get the belt over with I forgot what they call legitimacy. They told us that we were like we wanted the titles, but looking back, it didn't make sense. Being a WWE superstar and being a fan favorite is way more prestigious and more honorable than being a champion, because they could put the belts on anybody, but actually being loved by the fans, you have to earn that.
And Jayson, in terms of you had your own sort of independent career in the WWE, went out in terms of a singles career as well. In terms of next you had various appearances. For you, in terms of being in the time in the WWE where there was Kurt Angle was still possibly there in terms of stages, Undertaker, Triple H now and again. What was it like probably sharing a locker room or sharing a dressing room with probably people like that you grew up, and obviously when wrestlers came back from periods in the past, like likes of Ric Flair now and off again, like what was that like for you in terms of your own personal experience, and any sort of words of advice that they give you, some wrestler gave to you that stood to you even to this day?
Yes, absolutely. Being 21 and being signed to the WWE, it was mind blowing. And also when I got into the locker room and interacting with the people that I grew up watching, like Shawn Michaels, Triple H, even when I met Bret Hart for the first time, that was my childhood hero and still is. I still look at him as a mentor. But my mind was definitely blown, and because I remember distinctively being on the WWE tour bus. We were in the UK, and I had to soak it in. I was on the bus with Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, Triple H, John Cena, Ric Flair. I'm just like, I couldn't at the time. I was just like, so like, this is so unreal. But I had to remain professional, because you can't be turned into what we call it in the States a mark. But I remained professional. But I was in my head, I'm like, I can't believe I achieved this at such a young age. It was definitely a surreal experience.
And Jayson, in terms of your other accomplishments as well, you've appeared as an actor, you've appeared in Bad Night the movie, you've appeared in the last Sharknado. I know acting, as you mentioned, is something that you're very passionate about even to this still day, and you are an author as well, two sort of books reading as well. So had you always a creative sort of mindset in terms of books? Well, how did that come about in terms of that sort of, or was it real a pastime of yours?
The book writing, I never had any intentions on becoming an author. I just tell very good stories, and I could say that my friends and family kind of encouraged me to tell my side of the story and have fun with it. You know, it comes from a comedic view, because most professional wrestlers, when they write a memoir or a book or autobiography, you know, it comes across sometimes very bitter. And I wanted to have the opposite approach. So I decided to take a whack at writing, and I was good at it. And apparently I'm a two-time Amazon best-selling author.
And in terms of Jayson, in terms of, I know you had a deep sort of personal tragedy, and I'm not going to go into that. But in terms of going forward, given that the history you had with Shad, are you probably going to obviously pursue maybe an independence career as a solo wrestler going forward, or are you open possibly in the future of being paired in a tag team once more, or do you feel that you've done that but you want to be an independent, sort of go out on your own from now on?
Yeah, from now on moving forward, it's only I'm only interested in my solo career. Yeah, I have no intentions in being paired with anybody else or being in a tag team. I think that if I did that, you know, people automatically think of Shad or Cryme Thyme, and I think I could represent myself and the team and Shad on my own, and I'm doing a good job right now as we speak.
And I just want to touch back on the acting career, Jayson. Is that something we've seen the success of John Cena, Dave Bautista? We've seen a number of wrestlers make that transition in terms of the crossing from the movies. We've seen the Nathan Jones, who appeared in the WWE for a while. He was in the recent Mortal Kombat sort of movie as well. So is that sort of something that the wrestling does? It provides that sort of platform as well in terms of credibility, in terms of in the entertainment industry, that if you're successful appearing on a top brand, it makes it easier to get your foot in the door, maybe in terms of acting gigs in the future. We've seen how it's worked for John and Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you live in LA. I'm on Hollywood Boulevard right now as we speak, and being here, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of directors and writers. They're big wrestling fans. So yeah, if you're in LA, right place, right time, word of mouth, you're definitely going to be open to auditions, and sometimes even surpassing the auditions and just getting a role just because somebody who's working on the project is a wrestling fan and they know your work.
And I suppose, lastly, Jayson, there's probably a sort of similar sort of wrestling tag team at the moment in the WWE, the Street Profits. What you sort of make of that in terms of that? You look at them and see elements of your sort of youthful, enthusiastic sort of Cryme Thyme, or do you look at you don't really look at it and don't really take much notice to it, or do you sort of love the work that they're doing at the moment?
I kind of like the work that they're doing. They're Cryme Thyme and Street Profits, similar but very different. You know, they have their own style, and Shad and I were a little bit more edgy, and we took a little bit more risk, but we got away with it because there wasn't no Twitter in 2006 when we started. Now, you know, if the Street Profits tried to pull off any of the things that Shad and I did, I think that there'll be some very negative hashtags. Yeah, these days social media is very sensitive, and that's why I think it was very hard for Cryme Thyme to make a comeback, because the stuff that we did back in 2006 we couldn't necessarily get away with now. But there was interest in Cryme Thyme coming back, but it was very touchy. But the Street Profits, I love what they're doing. I would love to see them not split up, but I would like to see Montez, you know, break off and do his thing in the near future as a singles wrestler.
And Jayson, one final thing that's just came to me there. We see many wrestlers make the transition across to mixed martial arts and UFC, and we see all these sort of mixed entertainment events now in terms of the Jake Pauls and the Fly Mayweathers. In terms of that sort of acting or sort of theatre or those sort of performances, is that something you have an interest or draw to, or do you see it as camaraderie, or have you ever thought of delving into that sort of world of mixed martial arts, or the sort of pantomime that we see with Floyd and all that at the moment?
Absolutely not. Yeah, I'm not into into the UFC or the. I would like to learn it for my own personal interest. But as far as in competing, no. My passion right now is professional wrestling and entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship, and building and using my creativity to to make a living, pretty much. Yeah.
On that note, Jayson Paul, what would you like to say to your Irish fans that followed you, JTG, and Cryme Thyme throughout the years?
I just want to say thank you guys. We love performing in Ireland. I remember that. That was one of my first stops on my first UK tour with the WWE. We went to Ireland, we went to Scotland, we went all over, and we had a blast there. We went out drinking with the locals. We had a blast. And keep up to date with me on Instagram at JTG121084. Instagram, Twitter is JTG1284. And I know a lot of you, my Irish fans got beards, go to shbeardcare.com and get you some sexy as hell beard care. And yeah, and I hope to get an email from a promotion in Ireland so I could come back down there again.
I'm sure there'll be many offers coming your way, Jayson Paul. Jayson Paul, thanks for joining us in terms of your contribution for our upcoming documentary, Icons of Sports Entertainment. Thanks for hearing your stories about JTT, Cryme Thyme, your relationship with Shad Gaspar. We wish you all the best in the future. It's great to see that you're pursuing a singles career, no doubt, with there's so many opportunities in the water at the moment with All Elite Wrestling, with TNA, and obviously with the WWE. And no doubt we'll see you back in one of those big promotions in the near future again. But for the moment, Jayson Paul, take care and God bless.
Thank you. You have a great one.
Cheers. Thank you.